We're going to be in Genesis 5, and you'll see it up there, and then we'll be in Hebrews. And I'm going to get myself there too as well, so I don't have to flip to it in the middle of it. But what we're going to talk about in this Against All Odds series, right, is we're going to spend 5 weeks talking about some great men in the faith throughout the Old Testament. Guys like Daniel, guys like Joseph, guys like Noah. Tonight we're going to talk about a guy named Enoch, which many of us probably don't know because he gets like a small little footnote in Genesis. There's not a lot to his story. But we're going to talk about these guys because sometimes when we read through the Old Testament, when we read through Scripture, we read about these guys and we're like, okay, yeah, but like that was then and this is now and no one can be like that now, right? Like when we're reading through the flood account and we're reading about Noah, and we get to the part where Noah has a dream and God speaks to him and he's like, all right, it's boat building time. Like if we go to sleep tonight and in the middle of our dream and we wake up and we're like, am I supposed to build a boat? Like we're just going to think we had like some bad dinner the night before. We're going to write that dream off and try it again the next night. We're like, no, that seems too hard. I've never even used a hammer before. Right? Like there's just these crazy moments in the Bible of just incredible faith and incredible things. And we're going to look at these and see, what do these mean for us today? Okay, because unless Marble Falls just goes like completely underwater and I'm charged with saving in all of humanity, right? Like that seems like a really big faith. Right? And so these moments where Daniel's thrown in lions' dens, right? And Joseph is like thrown in a ditch by his brothers. And we look at these and we go, listen, my brother hates me, but I don't think that much. He does hate you that much. There's a whole lot back waiting for you when you get home. But we look at those things. We go, okay, how do we move forward? What does that mean for us today? And so what we're really even going to talk about is integrity and character, because the thing that all of these people have in common is that in the midst of a culture that didn't believe the same thing they believed, that thought that they were crazy for the God that they believed in, that thought they were crazy for what they were going to do, they had this thing called integrity, okay? And so my dad used to just beat over my head what integrity was, and he would always tell me, Lane, integrity is doing the right thing when no one else is looking. I was like, well, that's hard. That's not fun. You're supposed to do the wrong thing when no one else is looking. Dad, have you been a teenager before? I'm like, I know you have. You got a lot of speeding tickets to prove it. But you just tell me all the time. And so these guys, man, when no one is looking, when their back is against the wall, against all odds, they have integrity. And so what we want to talk about for the next 5 weeks is, what does integrity look like? How do we have integrity? And tonight, we're going to answer that question. How do we even have integrity? We can't really worry about what it looks like if we have no idea whether or not that we have it. Okay, and so there's a lot of things that probably drive my wife insane about being married to me. Okay, like can't load the dishwasher, not great at folding towels. Listen, dudes, here's some freebie. You ain't good at nothing. Okay, that's just the way it is. Women are superior. I guess we can't. Don't fight the battle. Just take it for what it is. And one of the things that really drives her insane, though, is not really my lack of ability to do anything. It's what happens when I spend time with certain people. Okay, so when we were dating, my whole family is from Arkansas. Okay, I was born in Arkansas. And if you don't know anything about Arkansas, when they talk about like the deep South, listen, they ain't talking about like the Valley, Texas. Texas is not the deep South. This is Mississippi, Georgia, Alabama, Arkansas. Like these are people that still wear overalls, and not because it's a fashion statement. Okay, like this is where they're at. And I grew up there, and I'll go and I'll spend time with them in Christmas and Thanksgiving, and I would come back to school at Texas A&M, and we would hang out, and it would take about 5 minutes before Haley is like, "What happened to your voice?" I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about. She'd be like, "You sound like you've been working in the fields for 3 days." I'm like, she's like, you have a country accent that is like nothing I've ever heard before. And it would only take like a few days with my family, okay? Because not only is my family from Arkansas, but my mom's side of the family is from like deep, like the deepest dark depths of Louisiana, okay? Like they are Cajun as the day is long. And so I would come back like I had just gotten back from a shrimp boil every single time. Like I was like, what are you talking about, woman? I don't understand. She's like, what happened to you? It's terrible. And I'll hang out with my brother and his wife. And I would hang out with them in high school because they've been together for a pretty long time. They've been married for a while. They got 2 kids. And as I'd hang out with them, I thought that they were like really cool. And so I would start to talk like them, tell the same jokes that they did, tell stories the same way. Just the flow of conversation would begin to look the same. And what I noticed is that when I hung out with people that I really enjoyed being around or that I wanted to be like, it didn't take very long for myself to just change into them. It just didn't take any time at all, right? Even in 5th grade, I skateboarded because I was cool, and that's what cool kids did in 5th grade, okay? I was a rebel without a cause. I wore black everywhere. All the girls picked on me and called me goth, and I was like, stop it! And it was miserable. And then they stole my mascara, and it was over. And I'm kidding. I didn't wear mascara. My dad looked. There's adults in the back like, who did we hire? I didn't wear mascara more than 2 or 3 times. And so, that was who we are. And so my friends were like, man, we're rebels without a cause. We were listening to like punk rock music, which is like a thing of the past now. It's kind of a bummer. It's not as good as it used to be. Well, I sound like I'm 70. I realize that. It's just the way it is. And we would listen. And so one day we were like, man, we're going to just be so different. I was like, oh, please, no. And like tomorrow, not even tomorrow, we're going to commit to wearing all of our clothes backwards. Okay, and look, being a teenager is hard. Adolescence is scarring. Okay, kids are mean. Teenagers are mean. 5th graders are the devil. Okay, like you walk into school and you're wearing a shirt backwards, and like kids are walking up to you like, "It's your tag," like pop you in the nose. You're broken. Go to the ER. You never come back the same. It's miserable. But my group of friends was doing this thing, and so I was like, whatever. I'm all in. Like I just wanted to look like them. I wanted to talk like them. I wanted to be like them. Right? Haley and I have been at this church since July. We haven't been here very long. I am kind of an affectionate person. Like there was a point in my life where I'm like, I feel things. Like I'm not completely dead inside or anything. But then I came to this church, and you people hug anything that moves. Okay, so I'll be like walking around on a Sunday morning, and everybody's like, "Are you the new youth pastor? Hey, how are you?" Noogie, and I'm like, "Who are you?" I spent 30 minutes on this morning. Not today. Today's a bad hair day. But it was crazy, and then now, like, all of a sudden, I find myself, I went to a conference this week with other youth ministers, and we're walking around, and I, like, see friends from a long time, and I'd be like, "Oh, hey, brother, how are you, man? How's your heart?" And I'm like, did those words just come out of my mouth? How's your heart? Like, I was so confused. Why am I hugging people that I might not even like? Like, it was weird. It's just because the culture that I'm around, the people that I'm around, right, like our pastor, Ross, the dude loves his hugs, man. He's a hugging fool. The first time I met him, I came to interview, and he's like, "Hey, brother." And I'm like, I didn't even know he was the pastor at that point. He's just hugging me. And so what we know is, man, when we hang out in any culture, when we hang out with our friends, when we hang out around people, we begin to become them. Okay, and this is the danger that your parents are afraid of. Okay, because they're fearful that you're going to bring that one kid home from school, and they're like, "Oh, no." And then it's always like the mom, because the dad's like, "What are you talking about?" And the mom's like, "I saw what that one kid posted on Instagram. He killed someone." You're like, why is he in our house? Get rid of him, quick, out the door. And so we just know that tangibly the people that we hang out around, the people that are around us all the time, that we begin to become like them. We begin to dress like them. We begin to do the same things that they do. We begin to listen to the same music that they listen to. We begin to watch the same shows on Netflix that they watch. Our conversation becomes the same. Our words become the same. If we become like people, and that's a cool thing, right? Like it's just a cool kind of idea that we can kind of create our own little cultures and our own little subcultures and hang out together. That's great. Right? Our youth ministry has one. Every youth ministry has one. Marble Falls has one as a community. Right? The state of Texas has one because we're our own little country. Like everybody's got that. No one understood that. They're like, Texas is not a country. Yes, it is. Don't let your friends tell you any different. And so we look through and we go, man, that's a good thing, but it's also a terrifying thing. Because the danger is that we might become to look like someone that we don't want to look like. The danger is that we might start to look like so much of someone else that we kind of begin to lose ourselves in the mix. The danger is that those of us trying to follow Jesus, that those of us who would call ourselves Christians, that those of us who would call ourselves children of God, that we might begin to hang out with some people that don't look like God or can even like spell his name. And it ain't hard. It's only 3 letters. Starts with a G. Cheat sheet. And so we begin to look at that and we go, okay, if we become the people that we look like, what does that mean for our faith life? What does that mean for our integrity? Right? Because we're becoming people. We're becoming certain people. We're becoming the people that we're around. And so here's what we need to know. Here's what we see in Genesis. It says in Genesis chapter 5, and we see this in verse 21 about a man named Enoch. Enoch was 65 years old when he fathered Methuselah, which is a miracle. Ain't nobody fathering anybody at 65 these days. And thank you. And after he fathered Methuselah, Enoch walked with God 300 years and fathered other sons and daughters. Enoch, dang son. So Enoch's life lasted 365 years. Enoch walked with God, then he was not there because God took him. Enoch walked with God, then he was not there because God took him. We read a little bit more about Enoch in Hebrews, because Hebrews talks about some great men of the faith. And we see in Hebrews chapter 11, verse 5 and 6, you don't have to flip there, but I'll read it for you. It says, by faith, Enoch was taken away, and so he did not experience death. He was not to be found because God took him away, for therefore he was taken away, he was approved as one who pleased God. Now without faith it is impossible to please God, since the one who draws near to him must believe that he exists and that he rewards those who seek him. Enoch is the first person in all the verses between 5:1 and 5:20. There's a lineage of people. Okay, it's just like there's this person, then there's this person. It's like at Thanksgiving when your family starts talking about people that you don't know because like they have all gone to be with the Lord, and they're just like listing off, and you're like, all right, let's get to the end of the story. I don't know any of these people. So that's kind of where we're at in Genesis chapter 5, and it lists, and it gets to Enoch, and it says, and then Enoch walked with God. And it doesn't say that about anybody else. Up until this point, there's a moment in the garden, right, where Adam is literally physically walking with God, but Enoch is the only person whose life is known. He is identified by walking with God. And here's what we know about walking, right? When anytime the Bible talks about walking with someone, anytime we talk about walking with someone, we're talking about being in relationship with them, stride for stride, doing life together. Enoch is walking stride for stride with the God of creation, and he is identified by it. It would be like if somebody was in your school that you didn't know, and you're like, oh, who's that person over there? They're like, oh yeah, that's Julie. She walks with God. And you're like, say what? That's how the same way that we just go, oh, that's so-and-so. They're on the football team. Oh, that's so-and-so. They're in the choir. Oh, that's so-and-so. They're really into like comic books. Oh, that's so-and-so. They watch Netflix 24/7. It's actually impressive. They don't sleep. Like that Enoch is identified by walking with God. And in his walk with God, he does good things. He pleases the Lord. But it says in Hebrews chapter 11, he doesn't please the Lord by doing good things, although he does them. He pleases the Lord because of his faith in God. And in that faith, he learns to please God. His walk is a process. He is becoming someone. He is becoming like God. He is walking with him. And what we know as Christians is that to become like Jesus, like if we're to say like that's the end goal, is that every day we're becoming more and more like Jesus. To become like Jesus, we have to be walking with him. And here's the deal. The moment that you got saved, maybe it was at Fields of Faith last week. Maybe it was at VBS like a long time ago. Maybe it was on your bed at night with your parents. Maybe it was at Citywide. Maybe it was at camp. Whatever it was, when you got saved and prayed a prayer and the Lord came into your life and the Holy Spirit came to dwell inside you, incredible, incredible moments. But like that moment, like we're done. We're past it. It's time to get up and move on and walk. Anytime Jesus performs a miracle in the New Testament, he says, get up and walk. Get up and move forward. For the church to look like Jesus, we must be walking with him. What does that have to do with integrity? Why is that important? Because here's the deal. Integrity is founded in goodness. That you are good and unwavering in the midst of no matter what is going on around you. But goodness has to be defined by something. And it can either be defined by flawed people, by sinful people, which is kind of where we're at in culture now. Like everybody's got their own little definition of good. Or it can be defined by God who sets the precedent for good. And so in walking with God, we learn to have integrity because he is good and we are learning to be good. And for those of you that we sometimes read this text, and man, this passage in Hebrews 11 is important. We're trying to do good things to earn the favor of God. No. Enoch isn't doing good things to earn the favor of God. He has the favor of God because he has faith in God, and therefore he does good things. He's not walking with God that God might approve of him. He's walking with God because he already does. That is hugely, hugely important. To look like Jesus, we must be walking with him. We must be in the Word. We must be in prayer. We must be worship. We must be around other believers. And that doesn't mean that we're not around other people that aren't believers. That's not biblical either. There's nothing in the Bible about that. We need to be in culture. We need to be out there spending time with people who don't know Jesus. But we also need to always return together to be walking with Jesus, because we become like those we spend time with. And you are not becoming like Jesus if you are not spending time with him. You are not developing a character of integrity if you're not spending time with him. You can try and you can try and you can try and you can depend on your own strength, and some of you may even do pretty good for yourselves, and you might be a great kid who does good things. But the favor of the Father comes through faith, not in your ability to do good things. And that is good news, because you will fail. You will fail, because here's what we know about walking. When I was in college, I went to Texas A&M, loved it, great university, but there's a whole side of campus that is not regularly paved roads, okay? They're bricks, and those are roads from the devil, okay? Because there is no evenness. Like, every little thing is like a little bit more than itself, and I'm a real foot dragger, okay? I don't like to pick my feet up. Like, the toes on my shoes are wearing out because I just like, I'll get to class eventually. And I would walk, and it would not take any time at all before I was like, and I'd fall. But I'm an athlete. I'd catch myself. I'm not going to end up on the ground, okay? And I would walk. But as I'm walking, there are things, there are blocks, there are stumbling blocks, there are hard times, and I'm going to fall. And here is like the worst thing that would happen on campus is when I was walking and someone would fall and they would just eat it and they had no friend around them. Because you feel this tension where you're like, oh, I want to help you, but I know you don't want me to draw attention to the fact that all your teeth are gone. Like, I'm feeling this tension. I don't know what to do. And in the moment, you're like, I really wish that you were walking with a friend to class that could help you, because I hate this feeling inside. What we know when we walk with God is that we do not just gracefully skip. We fall violently sometimes. We fail miserably. Face first, teeth knocked out, blood on the bricks. But when we walk with God, he's there to pick us up. We are not awkwardly falling and everyone's looking around like, oh no. Keep going. God is there to pick us up. Not only this, when I would walk across campus with Haley, I don't know if you've met my wife, seen my wife, she's always around, walking around here. She's like this tall. And I'm like this tall. And so when we would walk across campus, like, listen, I am getting places when I move. Okay, I was unloading archery tag today, and Bubba was like, hey, is that it? And I was like, dude, I'm on 11, man. I am power walking, right? You know, like your hips start to swing, and you're just like in mode. That's me like all the time. And A&M's campus is huge, and so it's like, I got to get to class. And so I would just be power walking, and I still do this, even though I have like no urgency in my life. And Haley will just like be in the back, and she'll be like, hey. I'm like, what? It's like, where are you going? And I'm like, I don't know. I'll like pull her along. I'm like, get those little legs moving. What we know about walking with God is that, thank goodness for my wife, it is nothing like that. When we walk with God, he is stride for stride with us, alongside us, moving with us. And there will be times in our life when we're in a brisk jog, or we're in an all-out sprint, and then there will be times in our life where it feels like our feet are dragging, but God is walking with us. He is not leaving us. He knows what is to come. He has gone before us, but he is right there with us. And so as we seek to be better followers of Jesus, are we walking with him? I would tend to say not. Like, not very well. Because if we were to like throw, and we're not going to do this, but if we were to throw some questions on the screen and have you maybe take some little self-investment, and if you're walking with Jesus, and some of you who have been in the church for a long time, or have been Christians for a long time, and you begin to look, and you begin to say, okay, how much time do I spend in the Word? How much time do I spend in prayer? How much time do I spend in worship? How much time do I spend really just listening to God? How much time do I spend in community with other believers? And we begin to kind of gauge that out. It would probably be pretty depressing. I know it would, because like sometimes it's pretty depressing for me. I'm like, oh, Yeah, I didn't hit that last time. I didn't do as well as I wanted to. I know that because when we go to Fields of Faith and we go to camp and we go to Citywide and we go to all these things, we finish the weekend and almost 9 times out of 10, every single person there was like, I'm going to do better. I'm going to follow Jesus better. He did something in my life this week. And what we're saying is we want to walk with God. And there's a disconnect. Because walking with God is hard. There's an entire lineage of men that lived for hundreds of years, and none of them else have that attached to their name. None of them. But Enoch does. And God is the same then as he is now. He's the same as he will be. And so we can walk with him. And he wants to walk with us. He is a God that delights in a relationship with us. That is Christianity. A moment of a prayer and getting saved is great, and we'll celebrate it, and we'll baptize you, and your faith will be public, and it'll be beautiful. But it's all the steps after that that matter. It's the walk and the journey after that that matter. That is Christianity. It is the falling down and busting your face on the bricks, and then finding yourself sprinting later on. You will find yourself in both. But in that walk, God is with us, and he is making us into men and women of integrity. That the foundation of ourselves will turn from darkness to light. From sinfulness to holiness. God transforms us and makes us into that as he walks with us, as we walk with him. And so tonight, George and the band are going to come up and lead us. And Gracie, I'm going to move this table for you because I didn't do it in the last hour for Hannah. But they're going to come up and they're going to lead us in worship. If you don't even know God, you cannot walk with him. And tonight, you need to know that God. Not for my sake. Not for the sake of the person sitting next to you, but for the sake of goodness and integrity and character, that we are sinful. And that's okay. That's not me like tapping you on the forehead like you dumb, stupid little sinner. Like, I am sinful. We are sinful, and there is no transformation from dark to light without God. And so tonight, man, if you don't know that God, you need to talk to one of our leaders in the back. You can talk to me. You don't have to. You can talk to a leader in the back and meet Jesus. He's in the business of transforming people, changing broken homes, broken lives, broken families, broken people, and making them whole in Christ. And if you have said a prayer, you've been saved, you're a Christian, you're like, I get it. Oh my gosh. Are you walking with God? And the better question is this. If you ask someone in your school if they thought that you were walking with God, what would they say? If you ask someone in your school how to identify you with even 5 points, would one of the 5 be that you were walking with God? Because that's the only thing they identify Enoch by. Worship God tonight and ask him to transform you in ways that your identity begins to be one that walks with God, and it changes your integrity and your character, and it is unwavering in the midst of an ever-changing culture, that you are walking with God. I'm going to pray for us, and the band is going to lead us in worship. Father, we thank you for tonight.